Joe, please spread it. إذا بتفوت على الchannel, you'll get the new link.
So meanwhile, Joe will share all our social media links. Also, we have a WhatsApp group.
We are live.
All right. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you.
I would like to welcome everyone. Also, I would like to welcome all the new people joining us today. We've been doing that for almost 6 months now or more, Rudy. And we do this on a monthly basis. And each time we have a new topic. All the topics is around IT service management. Today's topic is with Mr. Nasser Al-Hout. Nasser is a well-known ITIL, ITSM consultant and an expert. He will be talking about ITIL4. I know we've talked about ITIL4 at the beginning. However, this session, it's different. So he will talk about the alignment or the best practice in installing or adopting ITIL4. He also highlights the certification and the advanced certification and the training around it. Mr. Nasser, welcome.
Thank you,
the floor
Antoine.
is yours.
Thank you.
Just one more thing, Nasser. All the questions should go into the chat, and we will answer all your questions at the end of the session.
All right, sounds good.
Nasser.
Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Let me just share the presentation. Just quickly to introduce myself, my name is Nasser Al-Hout. I have more than 20 years of experience in IT. I've been involved in ITIL since version 2, basically. I'm an accredited trainer as well as a consultant for ITIL, plus other standards, frameworks, best practices, ISO 20000, Prince2, and so on. I have done consulting work basically for some of the major organizations in the region, as well as training. So in brief, this is what I do. Today, we're going to talk basically about three key topics, okay? Let me share with you the agenda for today. Overview, we're going to give an overview about ITIL4, it was developed, the history of ITIL, and some perspective about the challenges in worldwide and in the region, and how ITIL4 can actually address these challenges. So a brief overview of the key concerns. Then the core of our presentation today is how do we actually align IT with business? How do we use the different components to align IT with business? Then we hear a lot about the term IT business alignment. How do we actually do it? Okay, so I did some effort here. This is based on my effort, actually, did some research here and there based on experience and came up with some kind of approach for actually aligning IT with business. And finally, for the past few minutes, we're going to talk about certification scheme. There have been some updates to the certification scheme, and I know some of you are interested to know these. So I'll basically address these and we'll leave some Q&A at the end. So my target is to finish the presentation in 45 minutes, roughly, more or less. So if I tend to go on more than that, you can stop me at any time because sometimes I just tend to talk and talk and talk. Okay, so these basically are our topics for today. The presentations, of course, the slide will be made available for you. So I included some additional material in the slides, which you may find useful, okay? Let's get an overview about IT service management. IT service management, I know most of you probably are already involved in ITIL and in ITIL best practices. Services are important. When I look at the initiatives that are happening throughout the region, okay, I do a lot of work in Saudi Arabia. Okay, governments are going transformation programs. Governments offer services, and at the heart of these services is basically IT. Without IT, you cannot offer these services. It is as simple as that. Everybody actually knows about this. Services comprise the biggest part of the economy, of any economy. They are focused on services. So in many instances, because of the importance of IT is not just about managing routers, switches, applications. That's not what IT is about. IT has to become a truly strategic partner for the organization. And when I'm talking about digital transformation programs, which is the buzzword these days, at the heart of digital transformation is IT, is big data, is using these emerging technologies. So basically, without IT, we cannot do much. Unless you're a small business, you're a mom and pop store, you cannot do much without IT. So organizations need IT. And of course, this IT has to be managed in a structured way, in a structured approach. So ITIL, of course, has been at the heart of IT service management, or at the core of service management for the past 20 some years, okay? So ITIL has evolved over the years. Now, this is a quick just to show you the evolution of ITIL, how ITIL has evolved over the years. In the 1980s, it started as government infrastructure IT management. ITIL gained a lot of acceptance with version 2, which was released in 2001, okay? ITIL v3, which introduced the lifecycle approach, was introduced or was launched in 2007. In 2011, we had a major update to ITIL v3, where some processes were added, the core publications were revised, and so on. 2016 saw the introduction of the guiding principles with the release of the ITIL practitioner guidance, which had a lot of influence on ITIL4. And finally, in 2019, February of 2019, ITIL4 was released, which basically has, I mean, since ITIL v3 was released in 2000 or updated in 2011 till 2019, there have been, what, 8 years. In this time, there were a lot of changes. Other frameworks were introduced, DevOps, Agile, and so on. They gained more prominence. So there was a need to revise ITIL. How do we actually make ITIL work with these other standards, frameworks, and best practices? Technology changed, virtualization, cloud computing, AI. How do we make ITIL work with these emerging technologies? So there was a need to actually revise ITIL. And that was one of the reasons why ITIL4 came into existence. And by the way, just to let you know also, for ITIL 2011, I was the Arabic language owner for ITIL 2011. I was also one of the reviewers for the 2016 book, and also participated in the groups for the development of ITIL4 and the upcoming publications, which I will talk about when we talk about the certification scheme. So this is just a brief history to show you how ITIL has evolved over the years. Okay. So basically, it has been the dominant IT service management framework for the past 30 years, basically. ITIL4, of course, focuses much more on customer experience. With ITIL4, we saw the introduction of value streams. We never had these in ITIL v3. And these, by the way, deserve a topic on their own, just to discuss value streams and how important they are. Aligns better with digital transformation as well as new ways of thinking, such as lean, agile, DevOps, and all of these best practices. Okay, just to give you an idea. Now, I was also doing some research yesterday, okay, or actually this week, to prepare to understand what's going on in the landscape and how ITIL can help. According to the CIO the State of the CIO report, which is published on an annual basis by IDG, okay, by IDG, and you can actually download it from the internet, okay. If I look at the priorities of CIOs, these change over the years. These change over the years. But if you look at the priorities of CIOs over the past few years, as far as I can remember, one of the top priorities for any CIO is this one. How do we actually align IT with business goals? IT business alignment. Okay. And if you look at these, of course, they don't add to 100% because multiple people, I mean, individuals can select multiple priorities. Look at the IT business, where it is involved in the business, cultivating the IT business partnership, leading change efforts, which basically is about business and transformation, redesigning business processes. So this is where you can actually see the CIO priorities and the involvement of the CIOs in the business because of the role that IT plays in the business. Another interesting one, I just copy pasted this from the report actually yesterday. These are the activities that CIOs focused on. Now, of course, because of the corona situation, of the COVID situation and the coronavirus, these slightly shifted. And because of the work from home. So if you look at the focus of the CIOs, security management was top because of the work from home and the nature of work from home and so on. Improving IT operations system performance, aligning IT initiatives with business goals, okay? Implementing new systems to enable collaboration and so on, and driving business innovation. So still business is at the top. But what they hope to focus on the next 3 years, once we get rid of the Corona situation, again, the number one is driving business innovation, developing and refining business strategy. This is what CIOs are focused on, business strategy. Okay, then we can see the rest going on. And important also, this is also from the CIO report, state of the CIO report, how the CIOs see themselves. Okay, 28% of CIO respondents see their role as business strategists. They're not just managing infrastructure. They are more and more and more involved in the business. Okay. Another interesting one is this one. 81% of respondents want new technology in order to enable them to focus more on customer experiences and interactions and customer journeys. So again, it is important to understand these words because we are going to see these words when we talk about the different components that we have in ITIL. Good. So this is just to give you a background about ITIL and what's going on in the market and the directions that we see in the market these days and why alignment is important. And by the way, it is very important. What do we mean by alignment? Align or alignment? Merriam-Webster dictionary defines alignment as based to arrange things so that they are form, align, or are in proper position. You're in the right position, you're in order, or to change something so that it agrees or matches something else. Okay, so we are in agreement or matching, or to join a group that's supporting or opposing something. So basically, an alignment, of course, this is the state of being arranged in line or in proper position. So IT has to be in the right position, either whether leading the business or supporting the business or transforming the business. We need to make sure that both IT and business are going in the same direction. Now, the main components, as you can recall from of ITIL4, basically we have two components: the 4 dimensions model and the service value system. These are the two main components of ITIL. Okay, the 4 dimensions and the service value system. In the next section, we're going to talk about certain elements or aspects of these components that can actually help us in alignment. So we're going to dissect these a little bit and see how we can actually use these components for alignment. This is basically what we are going to be doing in the next section. Okay. Now, when we talk about aligning IT with the business, we talk about aligning IT with the business. The 4 dimensions model is important. Again, this is a quick review of ITIL4. The 4 dimensions of service management enables us to work in a holistic manner. So I don't just focus on processes. I need to have processes in place, but I need the processes to be supported with the right tools. I need to have the right level of information. I need to have the right level of people, organizations and people that will support this, people with the right skills, with the right knowledge. I need to have support of my partners and suppliers. If I cannot resolve an incident internally, I have to escalate. So I have to have a holistic manner. And this is basically what these 4 dimensions give me. It enables me to work or to address service management in a holistic manner, whether I'm talking about services, whether I'm talking about products, whether I'm talking about initiatives, improvement initiatives. Always think in terms of the 4 dimensions. The 4 dimensions are applicable to the entire service value system. Always think in terms of the 4 dimensions. Okay, so they are applicable to the entire service value system. Now, one dimension of particular that I want to discuss that is very important for alignment. I'm not saying the rest are not important, but this one takes a particular importance, this particular dimension, when I talk about IT business alignment, which is the organizations and people dimension. When we talk about organizations and people, there are 4 things basically that we need to focus on. We talk about having a formal organization structure. We need to have a formal organization structure. If we don't have stability of the organization, which will show us the reporting lines of authorities, and so on. Okay, so this is one. We need to have the proper organizational culture. Many of the things that we discussed in ITIL and ITIL focuses on is actually culture. When we talk about agile or using ITIL in an agile environment, it is a change in culture. We have to take culture into consideration when we are implementing these best practices. Roles and responsibilities. We have to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. That's a very important aspect of alignment. That's a very important aspect of having proper governance. Okay. And of course, I need to have the required staffing and competence, not just the right number of people. I also need to have the right number of people with the right skills. So this particular dimension takes on special importance when we talk about IT and business alignment. Okay. Now, when we talk about alignment has to happen at all levels in the organization. So basically, if I look at any organization, activities happen at 3 levels: at strategic, tactical, and operational levels. Strategic, tactical, and operational levels. And if I want to identify the key points of contact between business and IT, this is not an exhaustive list, but those are the key points of contact between business and IT, where actually we can see alignment happening. We have, of course, at a strategic level, a steering committee. You may have different terminologies in your organization. We have an IT executive committee. The CIO, which is the most senior role in management that is responsible for aligning IT with the business. Between strategic to tactical, we have business relationship managers, for instance. At a tactical level, we have the CAB, the Change Advisory Board itself, is a point of alignment between business and IT. We have service level management on a tactical to operational level. And of course, at the operational level, we have the service desk, which is the single point of contact between the users and the service providers, as you all know. So alignment has to happen throughout, not just at one level. It has to happen through all of these levels. Okay? All of these levels. So that's why I talked about roles and responsibilities in order to understand the right organization structure to make sure, because all of these are organization structures, we're actually addressing these contact points when we are aligning IT with business. I hope I'm not going too fast. Okay. Now, the second component, important component of ITIL is the service value system. The whole purpose of the service value system is to describe how the different activities, the components of an organization are put together, will work together in order to continually co-create value. Co-create value. The service value system, of course, has several components for it. And we're going to dissect some of these components in order to see how these components will help us in alignment, would actually help us in alignment. Okay? So basically, we have opportunity. It's driven or triggered by opportunity / demand. The output is always value. Some of the key components here, we have the guiding principles, governance. At the heart of the service value system, we have the service value chain, which will give us the building blocks to create our value streams. And we have the practices. The practices is basically where the heavy lifting is done. This is where the heavy lifting is done. Of course, ITIL focuses a lot on improvement, and we have continual improvements. This is the service value system, which constantly describes how we always go creating value in an organization. Okay? It is a very flexible model. It can be applied to an entire organization, to a department, to a business unit. It's an extremely flexible model. Now, let's look at some of the definitions are extremely important. And this is, again, remember the perspective when I talked about the CIOs, what they are concerned about. Those are ITIL definitions. What are opportunities? These represent options or possibilities to add value for stakeholders. I'm always looking to add value for stakeholders, or otherwise basically to improve the organization. And again, demand is the need for or desire for products or services. So basically among internal or external consumers, which basically is the business. Value, of course, the outcome is always value. The outcome is always value. for the different stakeholders. And that's the reason why organizations exist in the first place, to create value for the stakeholders. Now, one very important definition, because sometimes we look at these definitions and pass over them very quickly without thinking about these. But some of them have actually a very profound meaning. If I look at the traditional approach for value creation, which was defined in ITIL4, a service is a means of delivering value to customers by facilitating outcomes that customers want to achieve. This is basically was the definition of a service in ITIL4. However, that has evolved in ITIL4. A service is a means of enabling value co-creation. So value is now co-created through an active participation between the provider and the service consumer. Okay, so there's an active participation. Both are responsible for co-creating value. So it's not just I deliver the service and the customer does whatever. I also have to facilitate the two as a service provider to enable this co-creation. One of the nicest examples I give about this between the traditional approach and the modern approach, and you can think about it. Compare, for instance, the old model of delivering TV programs. You just watch a TV program, and the newer models compared to Netflix, for instance, or Amazon Prime and so on. Think about the differences between these models, where value is co-created through this constant collaboration and communication between the service provider and the consumer. Okay? So it's a joint effort by both, actually, by the provider and the consumer. Now, let's try to dissect the components of the service value system and see how these can actually help us in value co-creation, or in turn, IT business alignment. In ITIL4, we have 7 principles, the guiding principles. These are simply our guardrails. In particular, they can guide an organization in all circumstances. In particular situations, I may select a few principles that I think are more relevant for me. These will simply keep me on track, give me guidance, give me direction. That's why they call the guiding principles. Now, of course, there are 7 guiding principles in ITIL. I'm not going to go through all of these. However, I selected a couple that I think are more important, basically for alignment, how to align IT with business. I'm not saying the others are not important. So for instance, if you look at some of them, start where you are. ITIL specifically will tell you that your starting point should be the customer. But I'm only going to look at 2 of these that are extremely important for alignment, which will give us the guidance, which is focus on value and collaborate and promote visibility. Focus on value and collaborate and promote visibility. Now, focus on value, of course. If I look at focus on value, whatever I'm doing, I have to make sure that I'm delivering value. Anything doesn't add value, take it out. Why bother? What's the point? Now, when I look at the service value, the focus on value, the first thing that I need to do is to understand who the service consumer is. That's the first step. Okay, who am I serving? Okay, again, go back to the definition of a service, a means of co-creating value. Okay, by facilitating outcomes that customers want to achieve. I have to understand the customers. That's the first thing. I have to understand what are the outcomes, what are the results that they want to achieve. And in turn, I can deliver value to these customers. So the focus is always on the customers. The focus is always on the business. So it's also important to understand their perspectives of value, because it is the consumer that will determine the value of a service. It's not the provider. It is the consumer. And of course, ITIL also focuses a lot on customer experience, which basically aligns with the things that we have seen in the CIO report, okay, state of the CIO report. The other principle that I wanted also just to quickly look at is collaborate and promote visibility. ITIL is not a one-man show or a one-woman show. Okay, it's a team effort. And the first thing that ITIL tells us to collaborate, of course, we have to identify the stakeholders. But the first stakeholder that we need to collaborate with is this one, the customer. That's the first stakeholder. Identify this. These are my words. This is coming from ITIL. The first being the customer. Okay, the first being the customer. So these two principles, and of course, their ITIL gives us practical application for these principles. You can look them in the ITIL book. Okay, so these principles will tell us what to focus on. Okay, focus on the customer, which is basically the business. Now, the other thing that I wanted to look at is how can we actually make it work? What are some of the practical guidance that will actually help us align IT with business? And this is where we look at practices. In ITIL, practices are organizational resources, and always think about the practices in terms of the 4 dimensions. Okay, 4 dimensions. I need the tools, the information, the people, the organizations and people, all of these 4 dimensions. In ITIL, of course, we have 34 practices. 34 practices. They have evolved from processes in ITIL v3, and now they are, we think, more in terms of practices. These 34 practices are distributed along 3 categories or 3 groups. General management practices, which evolved from business practices, basically, and service management practices, and of course, technical management practices. These are the 3 groups of practices. Now, again, I have selected key practices that are required for alignment. Key. I'm not ignoring the rest, because even if you read other practices, they also talk about aligning with business. If I talk about availability management, I want to make sure that the availability of services meets or exceeds the needs of the business. Same for capacity management, same for incident management. That's how I prioritize incidents based on impact on the business. So I'm not ignoring the other practices, but rather I'm focusing on key select practices that will help us align IT with the business. Now, these are the key practices that I'm actually focusing on: continual improvement, measurement and reporting, portfolio management, relationship management, strategy management, and of course, service level management. And you'll see why I selected these processes and how we can combine them together in one holistic approach in order to align IT with business. Okay. Now, and I'm going to start, of course, with strategy management practice. I'm not going to go into practice in detail, but just to give you an overall approach about how we can use these practices to actually align IT with business. So the whole purpose of strategy management is to formulate the goals of the organization. Basically, we have our goals. What are we going to do to achieve these goals, basically? How are we going to get the resources? This is basically what the strategy management is about. Okay. So basically, again, I'm not going to go on the definitions, but some of the interesting things that we have here in, can you kindly just keep your microphones on mute, okay? Now, IT strategy is used in 3 different ways, the term IT strategy, because basically we're going to talk about 3 strategies. We have the business strategy, the IT strategy, and the digital strategy. What is the relationship between these strategies? How do they fit together? When we talk about IT strategy basically can be used, or the term IT strategy is used in 3 different ways. It has 3 different meanings. It is simply can be used as a synonym or component of digital strategy. Okay, either they mean, when I talk about IT strategy, as digital strategy, or basically it's a component of digital strategy. Or it can mean a technology strategy and corresponding architecture that supports the digital strategy, or simply as a strategy for the back office and administrative elements of information technology. So it can mean different things, IT strategy. Now, what is digital strategy? Again, this is the ITIL definition of digital strategy. Digital strategy is not an IT strategy, it is a business strategy that is based on all or part on using digital technology to achieve its goals and purpose. This is what digital strategy is. It is a business strategy. However, it will use these digital technology in order to achieve the goals and purpose. Now, Again, if I look at the traditional model, which shows the relationship between business strategy, digital strategy, and IT strategy, we can see that IT strategy is here outside and is used to support digital strategy and to support business strategy. Whereas in the more revised model, we have the business strategy, and at the heart or at the core of the business strategy, we have digital and IT strategy. And these digital and IT strategy in some instances can actually coincide totally within each other. So IT strategy can be used to mean digital strategy. So basically, what does that mean? What we're looking for here, or what we're looking at, is not just IT business alignment. What we are looking at is IT business integration. IT has become integrated within the business. IT is actually integrated within the business. In some instances, of course, in some companies or some organizations, IT is the business. So this is where we see this integration at the heart of the business strategy. We have the IT strategy and the digital strategy, which again can grow bigger or smaller depending on the nature of the organization itself. And ITIL, of course, give us this kind of guidance, how we can create these strategies. ITIL, whether it's IT strategy, I mean, strategy creation is strategy creation, whether we talk about IT or digital or business strategies. So now we're talking at the strategic level, how do we actually create these strategies? Okay. The next practice that I wanted to discuss is portfolio, or it's actually architecture management before we get into portfolio management. Again, architecture management is important. Architecture management is to explain different elements that form an organization. So basically, we have our strategy in place. How do we describe our organization, the current state of our organization, and how do we move to the future state? What's the current state? What's the future state? What are the gaps between the current and the future state? So if I look at the architecture management practice, and of course, here you can go into detail on one of the EA frameworks, TOGA for Zachman or whatever. Basically, if I look at the architecture management practice, what do we have here? Okay. Again, we can see we're aligning business with infrastructure, aligning IT business with IT. So basically, this is used to transform, to actually identify, okay, how we can actually move from the current state to the future state. And when we talk about this, again, we are discussing these layers across the 4 dimensions of service management. Across the 4 dimensions of service management. Okay. So basically, this is where architecture management can actually help us in order to move to the desired states. Okay. Now, another practice that is relevant for this alignment, that's important for this alignment, so I didn't want to select just any practice that everybody is familiar with, is of course portfolio management. Portfolio management practice is in ITIL is a very generic practice. The concept is the same. Whether I'm talking about project portfolio, whether I'm talking about the product portfolio, or whether I'm talking about service portfolio, the concept is the same. I have limited resources. Where should I allocate my resources to optimize my risk, to optimize the value of my portfolio? It helps us in decision making. So once I have actually made my decisions or actually determined my strategy, portfolio management, particularly when I talk about service portfolio management, will help me in making decisions about how do I allocate these resources, which services which we should go ahead with, which services we should retire, where should we make our investments. So this is where portfolio management, again, in line with the needs of the business, it helps us in prioritizing these investments that will go, the business investments in IT, in order, again, to maximize value to the organization. So you'll always see this term value repeated throughout, okay? So this is, again, another practice that will help us in this alignment. And of course, the responsibility for portfolio management is with the higher levels, because we have the IT strategy committee or the steering committee that will actually make the decisions regarding these portfolios. Now, another practice that is important, again, remember the levels of alignment that I talked about, strategic, tactical, and operational, is relationship management practice. In ITIL4, we had business relationship management practice. Here it became more generic. Relationship management practice is about managing relationships with all the stakeholders, not just with the business, all the stakeholders. However, I'm managing these relationships with the stakeholders at strategic and tactical levels. And of course, one of the key things when we are talking about managing these relationships, one of the most important stakeholders is this one: customers. These are the ones that will pay for the services, customers. So here we're talking about, again, aligning at when we talk about strategic to tactical level, and this is where this specific practice will help us in this alignment at this level. So after relationship management, what do we have? Okay, we have service level management. Like, I'm going to provide the services to the business. Service level management is a very point of agreement or disagreement between the service provider and the customer. So here we have where we set the targets, business-based targets. Those targets are based on the outcomes that the business wants to achieve, outcome focused. So I need to select targets, a balanced bundle of targets that will measure the customer's perception of the outcome of these services. And this, of course, requires a constant cycle of negotiating, agreeing, documenting these SLAs. Measuring is important here, reviewing, improvement. So this is, again, because I have to sit down with the customer every now and then to see if their objectives have changed. Are they happy with the targets that we have achieved? So this will give us this kind of alignment at this level. Okay, so again, I'm going down in the levels from strategic. Now we have reached, well, tactical to operational levels. Now, how do we make it work? Does ITIL give us some kind of guidance? How do we apply these practices? How do you apply some kind of, how do you apply these practices? How do you actually execute this alignment initiative, so to speak, if I want to do it as an initiative? And the short answer is yes, which happens through the continual improvement model or the continual improvement practice, which includes the continual improvement model. Now, the whole purpose of this continual improvement practice is basically to align the organization's practices, services with the changing business needs. This is basically what I'm doing here. That's what the whole purpose of continual improvement practice is, to align and realign. If in case the business changes direction, I need also to align with the business, to realign with the needs of the business. So continual improvement is all about improving basically everything. I want to improve services, processes, skills of people. Again, think in terms of the 4 dimensions, entire value streams. Okay, so continual improvement model can be applied at a strategic, tactical, as well as an operational level. So this will enable us, using this continual improvement practice, as well as the continual improvement model, to actually align IT with business by applying this model step by step. I'm not going to go through the steps of this model. I'm sure all of you are familiar with these steps, but again, look at the first one. The first step, what is the vision? I have to understand the business vision, the mission, the goals, the objectives. This is what I need to understand. And then I go through the other steps. So even I have a methodology, or actually some kind of guidance, I don't want to say methodology, some kind of guidance that will actually help me align IT with business and realign, because this is not a one-off effort. It is something that is ongoing. And if you can see also, one of the key things about continual improvement, when I say improvement, I'm always trying to do things better, faster, cheaper. That's improvement. The basis for improvement is measurement. The basis for improvement is measurement. I need to have measurement throughout. And this is where ITIL again gives me another guidance, is in the measurement and reporting practice. Because I need good decision-making at all levels on the organization, from a strategic, tactical, operational level. What is happening at an operational level will have an impact on strategic levels. So this, when talk about measurement and reporting, it's all about collecting relevant data, assessing it within appropriate context, presenting it to the different stakeholders in the form they need it, when they need it, at the level that is needed, at the time that is needed. Why? For decision-making purposes at all levels in the organization. So now I have the practices that are needed for alignment. I have guidance to implement these practices, and I have measurements in place in order to make sure that I'm on the right track. And if I'm not on the right track, I can take some corrective action. Basically, there are 4 reasons why you measure: to validate, to influence, to justify, and to intervene. So again, that's a detailed practice regarding the measurement. And here I also selected just one example where we can see these measurements, how we can use them in alignment to measure this alignment. We actually cascade the metrics from strategic levels all the way down to operational levels. For instance, by using this particular model where we are cascading purpose, objectives, indicators, metrics from the parent organization all the way down to the team or departments. So I have the alignments, the practices, how to do it, as well as some kind of guidance, how to put measurements in place. And this way, this ensures these measurements, this ensures the organization's strategy, tactics, and operations are aligned. So now we have closed the loop and went back to the model, the pyramid that we have seen, where we see activities done at the 3 levels: strategy, tactical, and operational level. So we have now the measurements in place, which will help us better gauge this alignment, validate this alignment, take any corrective action, and so on. So this, in brief, I try to make it as quick as possible, talk about how we can actually, this alignment can materialize. Of course, there are all the practices are relevant for this, but I selected these few, okay? Now, another topic that many of you are interested in, and I got the questions regarding this, is the certification scheme, because there have been updates regarding the certification scheme. Okay, what are these updates? Just to remind you, this is the ITIL4 certification scheme. Foundation, of course, which was released in February 2019, is prerequisite for all other courses, At higher levels, we have 2 possible streams or paths. We have the ITIL Managing Professional path, a set of 4 courses, 3 days each, usually. Each one, of course, is examinable, okay? Or we can take the Strategic Leader path, where we have, again, 2 courses for the Strategic Leader path. One course is common between both, which is the DPI, Direct, Plan, and Improve. So once you have passed the exams for all of these courses, the 4 courses, for instance, if you select to go to the Managing Professional scheme, you immediately earn the designation ITIL Managing Professional. Okay, doesn't mean that everybody in an organization needs to become a managing professional. Based on your role in the organization, you can select the courses that are relevant for you. Create, deliver, and support, CDS, DSV, HVIT, and DPI. Or you can opt for the Strategic Leader, where you have 2 courses, DPI and Digital and IT Strategy. For now, all of these courses have been released. The latest one that was released is DITS, Digital and IT Strategy, which was released almost a year ago, October of last year. ITIL4 Master is still not specified yet. They're still working on it. So this is the ITIL4 certification scheme. So all the courses are available, and this is basically the duration for each one of the courses, the prerequisites. Again, I'll make this available for you, the duration of the exams, and so on. For this, in addition to the exam, there are 4 assignments. So for this one, for each one of these, there's an exam. However, for this one, for the digital IT strategy, there's an exam, 30 questions, 60 minutes, and there are 4 assignments that are usually done in the classroom. They range in durations. 3 of them are 60 minutes each, and 1 is 90 minutes. So you have to pass the assignments before taking the exam. Okay, and if you need more questions about this, I can provide you with the questions about this. Now, other updates regarding the certification scheme. There are 2 new courses that are coming out in November 29, 2 new publications, which is basically the ITIL4 Specialist Acquiring and Managing Cloud Services. These have been a work in progress for some time, where we involved as part of the groups that were working on this, and Sustainability in Digital and IT. The other news which might be of interest to you is the discontinuation of ITIL4. Foundation has already been discontinued, ITIL4. Intermediates, English language, of course, I'm taking here, will be discontinued in January 1st, this should be 2022. Sorry about this. Okay, so this, I will fix this. 2022, all intermediates will be stopped, English language. ITIL4 transition will be discontinued in July 1st, 2022. So if you're planning to take some intermediates, make sure you do it before January in case you want to take the transition. And the other translated guidance, again, it depends on a case-by-case basis whenever the other courses are released. So these for other languages, it will be on a case-by-case basis. But this is basically the schedule of discontinuation of ITIL4. So basically, I did it within 50 minutes. So for now, that's it. If you have any questions, I'm willing to answer.
Well, as Nabil said, amazing and insightful presentation. Thank you, Nasir.
Thank you. Hopefully it was very helpful in the short period of time.
Yeah, excellent. So, so we have a couple of questions. Also, if someone have a question, also he can open his mic and ask it directly to Nasir. Nasir, if you don't mind, unshare your screen. Just close your screen.
Oh, yeah, let me just unshare 1 second. Stop sharing. Yes.
Yeah, stop sharing. So a question, actually, I have a question. So who specified the values? You said we need to focus on the values. Who specified the values for the company?
Wait, for the company, or are you talking about for a service or what?
Yeah, you said like we should focus, right? Focus on values. Okay. So who specified the values that are important?
Okay. When in doubt, go back. When in doubt, go back to theory, because the theory explains the practice. Go back to the definition of service. Okay, a service is a means of value co-creation by facilitating outcomes that customers want to achieve. So basically, the customers will define the value of a service. Now, the value is a mixture of things. The more you help the customers achieve the outcomes, the more valuable the service becomes. It is the customer. If you create a service that costs you $1 million to build, and for the customer, he doesn't think it's worth $100, they will not pay for it. And the opposite is true. If you create a service that costs you $100, and for some people it's worth $1 million, they will pay for it. And the examples from technology are more numerous than you think. If you go back to the history of technology, from WhatsApp, which is one of the latest, for instance, where Facebook made billions of dollars for it, to YouTube, to Hotmail, the examples are more than you think. It is the customer that will determine the value of a service.
Yes, thank you.
And value is a mixture of things. So it's not just one thing. It's a collection of things. If you're paying $2 for a pen, your expectations are totally different than if you are paying $2,000 for a pen. So it's a mixture of things. So remember, value is a balance between outcome, cost, risks. VOCR, value, outcome, cost, risks. Remember these acronyms. So it's a balance of things.
Okay. Musa is asking the connection between ITIL and COBIT. We should actually have a session about this one. So we will arrange for a session. Someone will talk to us about ITIL and COBIT.
Okay.
Where is the joint point?
Let me address this point quickly, because I specifically, if we look at the components of the SVS, we have the guiding principles and we have governance. Governance, ITIL specifically refers to COBIT. Now, why I didn't talk about governance and alignment? Because that's a totally different topic. Because we have so many ways to align using COBIT, using the goals cascade and so on. So basically, that's why I didn't discuss this topic. But within governance itself, when you talk about governance, better governance leads to better alignment automatically. So alignment is happening in all the components of the service value system, but that would be another good discussion to talk about.
Exactly. So we will have like a session dedicated for that. Tufi, I have a questions. Tufi, please open your mic and ask it directly.
Hi, Nasser. Thank you for the presentation. It's very, very fruitful. My question is how to measure value, because value is something not tangible in a way. How to measure and how to make sure we are progressively, year per year, we are aligned with the result.
That's why actually you can measure value. You can measure value. I said it's a collection of things. Okay, again, go back to theory. Value, it is as determined, one of the values, for instance, outcomes, cost, risks. What are the outcomes that I want to achieve? Outcomes. I want to be able to collect my money faster, reduce the cash collection time. That's one of the ways we can measure it. Market growth. Can you help me in market growth? Those are outcomes that I want to achieve. Okay. Cost, you can measure the cost. You can have how much it's costing me. Okay. Risks, you can assess risks. There are so many ways you can measure value. Some of it is tangible. Some of it even are a little bit hard to measure. For instance, the brand name, customer's perception. Brand name has value. And actually, there are organizations that put value on brand names. In some instances, yes, it is straightforward, like measuring the outcomes. And those who agree on these measures in the SLAs, that's why I mentioned the SLAs. Are you helping me achieve the outcomes? Better communication, growth, market share, whatever, collection, faster time to market, all of these can be associated with measures. Regarding costs, so there are measures that will help you actually measure this value. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that answers your question. But sometimes I agree with you, it is not straightforward.
Yeah, okay. Hadi, you have a question? I guess Hadi have a question.
Oh, hello, Maurice. Good to see you.
Amjad, do you have a question? Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Nasser. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Nasser, maybe this is a very old and new question, you know. We came back from V2 and we are the old generation. So we took V2
yes.
and then V3
I look that old, huh? I look that old, yeah.
V3 was released and then we had to do the bridge. And to be honest with you, most of the bridge exams will not give you the full journey of you understanding the whole, you know, new changes of the version, right? So you had to go and read all the way from the beginning. So would you advise to go for the same route as a quick win to go for the bridge exam, which is managing professional? So we can
go for the bridge. Of course, go for the bridge and read the books on your own. Yes, go for the bridge, read the books on your own. The whole thing about ITIL, you want me to be honest with you, go for the bridge and read on your own. The books are interesting reading. Each one of them is a couple of 100 pages, since they took the practices and they are documented separately. So the books themselves are easy reading and interesting reading. So definitely go for the bridge. Save time and money.
Thank you for the tip.
No problem.
Okay, Amjad. Dr. Maurice, عندك سؤال? Please go ahead.
Well, good to see you, my friend Nasser.
Likewise, Maurice. My pleasure, as always.
And we've been on a journey together for quite a long time.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm really fortunate to be part of your sessions as usual.
Well, I'm honored. Thank you.
Once again, the bridging from ITIL V3 expert into ITIL4.
Yes.
What courses involved, and how many days is the course if you want to do it online?
It's one course, which is the Managing Professional Transition. It's usually a 5-day course. This Managing Professional Transition course covers the ITIL Foundation courses, the ITIL Foundation for the key concepts of ITIL4 Foundation, plus key elements from the 4 Managing Professional courses, DPI, DSV, HV, IT, and so on. It's usually 5 days. And just one exam. The exam is not hard.
It's one exam.
Yeah, just one exam.
Okay.
I will send you again the details of these presentations. That will be discontinued by July of next year.
Okay, but do you have a public course in your calendar in your
sadly enough, I'm not doing public courses. Most of my training is still corporate, because public courses take a lot of time, effort, overhead. So mostly it's I still focus just on corporate. But we'll see. If we get enough requests, we may change. One thing, although, by the way, again, another comment regarding the transition. For the transition course, if you want to take the transition course, you don't have to be an ITIL expert. If you have accumulated 17 credits or more in the ITIL V3 certification scheme, you can take the Managing Professional Transition. So it's not just for ITIL V3 experts. If you have already accumulated 17 credits in ITIL V3, you can go for the Managing Professional Transition or more.
Okay, once you get the Managing Professional Transition, what qualification do you get in ITIL4?
Managing Professional. You'll become known as Managing Professional.
Part of the table that you showed about the 2 streams.
No, for the other one, you just need to take, for the other, if you want to go for the strategic leader, then you will just need to take the strategic leader. That's the strategic leader, because DPI is considered as it's covered. So you just need to take the strategic leader course along with the case study and the exam.
And then we will wait for the master to be published.
Master is not out yet. Okay.
Okay.
So it's still not out.
All right. I'll keep in touch with you.
Yeah, I'm here. You know, you have my number. If you have any questions, I'm here for the next couple of weeks. So.
That's good. Good to see you, my friend.
Likewise. Likewise. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maurice. Hadi is still with us? You have a question, Hadi Arrawi?
Let me see. There are a lot of messages on chat. I cannot follow up with all of these. Yes, please. You can go ahead and ask instead of chat. Will be good if you can just go ahead and ask.
Yeah, Mario, welcome. Mario Shartouni from Montreal. So lots of people outside Lebanon these days. Yeah.
Oh, Mario, a lot of names are familiar, actually.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
All right, good. Any other questions?
Welcome. Yes. So let me read for you the questions from Hadi. He said, more of a request, can you please give an example of an IT strategy and a digital strategy? Like differentiation example would be appreciated. Thank you, Hadi, for this question.
Yes. This will take a different session, actually. This will take an entire session. IT strategy for simply, just let's simplify things. IT strategy will focus on applications. Okay, we'll focus on infrastructure. This is where we will talk about IT strategy. A digital strategy will focus more about how we use these different digital tools, okay, in order to support directly the business. So rather, if we are separating them this way, as you have seen, sometimes they overlap or they coincide. But if I want to separate them, in IT strategy, I'm talking about infrastructure investments, about applications and so on. Digital is a little bit higher. That's a very simplistic separation because there is overlap and sometimes they even coincide, as we have seen in the definition. Okay. Bye.
All right. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Please, any other questions?
Any questions? Bye.
Just unmute yourself and shoot.
Guys, I have one more question, if you allow me.
Yes, please. I'm here. So I'm here. Any questions you have, I'm available.
بدنا نستفيد منك يا ناصر.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm available.
Nasser, what about ITIL master degree, ITIL4 master degree? صار لها route هلا؟ صار
No, it's still not defined. Still not defined. And usually for the master, there is no training for it. You have to submit your work. La people cert, في عنده work packages. For V3, it is there. But for ITIL4, you have to submit your work and you have done publications and practical implementations, and they will review their work, and based on this, they will assess you and grant you the certification. So it does take a lot of effort, actually. But for ITIL4, it still has not been defined.
يعني do you recommend إنه الواحد go to V3 master وبعدين في لها bridge ل V4 master ولا
let me ask.
شوي؟
I'll give you and I have never gone for the master, to be honest. I have better things to do with my time. I mean, does it add value to you? بكل صراحة, does it add value to you? This is the question. You think, I'm being honest, you know, and I say things the way they are. Do you think it will add value to you?
No, I think لما تروح للماستر degree بيكون more into you'll be more into بدل ما تكون students you want to do more of زي ما قلت research يعني بتاخدها ب different perspective. It's not like a material you have to study and go for the exam. فأتوقع بتروح الإكسترا مايل عرفت؟
بس I've never gone for ITIL master. يعني I have better things to do, with all honesty. يعني.
So you don't recommend it?
It's not for me. I didn't see it as a good fit for me. لأنه I have other things to do. I do a lot of consulting work, so I need to take my consulting work and put it in a way that and present it to them and discuss it. خلاص, I prefer to work on consulting and assignments and make money than to spend 6 months or 1 year submitting this, to be honest.
Yeah,
but for some
strategy.
people,
again زي ما بحكوا again لازم تختلف الأذواق طبيعي أساس الناس.
Is it adding value to you? يعني I'll be honest with you. I've been involved in ITIL since V2. I have never. I used to work at an international company. We implemented ITIL practices worldwide. Okay, worldwide. I never had any of the certifications until I got into training. It's an international, nobody cared about the certifications. We implemented these practices worldwide. But once you get into the training and to become an accredited trainer and so on, I went for the certifications. I, to be honest, Yani.
Agree with you, Nasser.
Definitely, it does add value, and it gives you, Yani, you start thinking in a different way. ITIL is a way of thinking. It's not something that's strict. It opens your eyes to many things.
All right, Amjad, thank you. Mazen have a question. He have an internet issue and he's asking about capacity management.
Yes.
So
what is the question?
Yeah, well, he would like to know more the main objective of capacity, and if there are any sub-processes of this practice. I know this is a big topic. Just a brief.
Oh yes, now in ITIL4 now it's called capacity and performance management. It is the focal point for all capacity as well as performance related matters. كل ما له علاقة بالcapacity and performance is handled in this particular process. And we were talking about capacity management. If you recall from ITIL V3, we had 3 sub-processes, 3 interrelated sub-processes. The capacity management has to be done at 3 levels. Business capacity management, which cascades into service capacity management, which cascades into the component capacity management. But طبعا capacity management is one of the most technically focused processes or practices, actually. Practice, not process. So this, if you require any specific topic or a combination of practices, we can actually discuss these in more detail if you have questions about any specific practices. Capacity management by itself is a huge topic, yani. But we can discuss certain practices in detail or certain applications or combinations of the different elements of the value stream and the 4 dimensions. Any topic, I'm available. Because it also helps me think. And this topic, I've been thinking about it for the past couple of weeks, just how to put these things together. Mr. Hani Abu Hilal, I can see you raise your hand.
Hello, everybody. Hi, how are you, Nasser? Nice to see you.
Good, likewise, Hani.
How are you? I have one question, please. Assume that we have ITIL V3 implemented in one corporate, and we want to upgrade or migrate to V4. What is the road? What is the roadmap for that, my friend?
What's the look through all the process documents and change the word process into practice. No.
You know,
I'm
if
just-
it is already implemented and everything
No,
is up and
I'm
running.
just joking. I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, do it little by little. I mean, are you going to change the terminology? The heart of it is still the same. At the heart of it is still the same. Yani if you have a release and deployment process, مثلا in ITIL v3, but ITIL4 separated it into a release or deployment. Do you need to actually have them separated, or do you need to have them combined? If you're going to do it little by little. Okay, yeah, do it little by little. Take things into consideration. Many of the practices, على فكرة, that were in ITIL v3, يعني we had the life cycle approach in ITIL v3, but حتى the life cycle approach wasn't very static. There were certain activities that we used to perform, for instance, that when we talk about the scope of processes, يعني change management, the scope of change management is all life cycle phases. إذا مش بتطلع على change management، هذه كان يحكوا عنها in ITIL v3. Within ITIL4 or change enablement, it also maps to all service value chain activities. So even in ITIL v3, we had a lot of flexibility, but here it is more profound. The key element that we would like to focus on, this will add immense value. If I wanted to take one thing out of ITIL that will add value to your organization, اللي هو value stream mapping. That is the most, forget about upgrading the processes, forget about everything else. The thing that will add the most value to your organization is when you start working with value streams. This is what the most profound change in ITIL. So you're not just focusing on a single process, but you look at value streams in total. And really
one more
focusing
question,
on value.
please.
Yes.
Regarding the ISO 20000.
Yes.
Right now, as you know our corporate, for example, we have implemented 20,000 with the ITIL v3.
Yes.
Right now, is there any new modification in case if we upgrade from v3 to 4 regarding the ISO 20,000? If you know, I don't know.
No.
ISO
20,000 is independent of ITIL or any IT service management framework.
Right.
Yes. ITIL has much more than ISO requires, actually, in terms of practice and so on.
Definitely.
So basically, ISO will give you the controls that you need to achieve. How you achieve them, it's up to you, whether you use ITIL or any other framework. So it is independent. What you should be concerned about, I don't know if you migrated to ISO 20018 or not yet.
Yes, we did it. Yes, we did.
طيب خلاص, if you migrated to ISO 2018 and passed, خلاص, why worry about this? As long as you achieve the controls, which should be your baseline in ISO 2018 version. يعني why is the need to upgrade يعني for ITIL4? As I said, the most important thing, go for the value streams. Okay.
Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Pleasure to hear your voice again.
Last question, Nasser, if you don't mind, from
no, please go ahead. I'm open. Yes.
Yeah. How we can register for the certification from outside the corporate?
From which certificate? What do you mean?
I guess like you don't have to be a part of a company to register for a certification. So you can register it as individual, right?
You mean to take the exam or training?
I guess for the exam, yes.
Yeah, how can you register for certification? Yes, for the exam. For foundation, you can take the exam without attending training. For the intermediate courses, you cannot take the exam unless you attend accredited training. You have to submit proof that you have attended accredited training. Foundation, you can take it on your own, self-study and take it. But for others, you have to attend accredited training.
Yeah, right.
With an accredited training organization, and you can find ATOs on PeopleCert website. Where can we take it? Well, you can take it at either an accredited, you can take, and exams can be taken at home. You can buy a voucher and take it at home through web proctoring or through an accredited training organization. As I said, based on your location, go to the PeopleCert website. Let me type it here, peoplecert.org. And you can find information about ITIL certification and so on. Those are the examination institute, the only institute that actually manages the certification scheme.
I guess Hani have a question, but also Maurice have a question. Yes. Please go ahead, Maurice.
I just would like to make a comment to the audience that doing the ITIL certification and getting the ITIL experience with training and implementation does not stop only at the ITIL level. I have been involved recently in formulating digital transformation strategies to organization, as well as formulating cybersecurity governance, risk, and compliance policies and procedures. And my ITIL experience was very valuable in these two domains. So don't take it that I do the ITIL and I work in ITIL only. Expand your horizon. ITIL gives you the springboard, and it all relate to what Nasser was talking about, is the value mapping. In every of these areas that I moved into, value mapping is critical to the business case that you need to make for senior management.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, it's an eye-opener, definitely, ITIL. Thank you.
Okay.
Who else has question?
If no more questions, we will end the session. But before ending the session, قريبا رح نصير نعمل sessions بالعربي. So رح يكون في dedication or dedicated sessions totally بالعربي. You know, we are service management forum Arabia. So I would like to thank you, Nasir, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I hope to see you in other sessions.
It's definitely my honor.
Yes, of course. And I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. Please join all our social media and WhatsApp group so for news, for new sessions coming soon. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. Have a good evening and hope to see you in the future. And for those of you that I saw again, it was a pleasure to see you again or hear your voice again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nasir.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.